Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Paranormal Peeps podcast. I am your host, Josh. I'm running solo today. Jamie and Elisa are both unavailable tonight, which is kind of their loss because we have a great guest on. We have Vincent Field. He is an author of Astral Projection and Lucid Dreaming.
Hey, how's it going, man? Thanks for having me on the podcast.
Hey, absolutely. It's neat to talk to paranormal authors and people that have, gone out and experienced some different things. And I would definitely say this is one of those things that I have never experienced in my life. It's really neat to have you on.
Yeah, for sure. I've been having these experiences since I was 14 years old. So I've had quite a few interesting encounters over the years.
What was it got you into astral projection? Was it something you read or just something you heard about? Like, what was it that got you into it?
Yeah, back in the day, I was pretty interested in paranormal topics. And I came across the concept of astral projection on the internet. This was back in maybe 1999 or 2000, like the early years of the internet. But,
yeah.
The web pages took like 10 minutes to load.
You get dial-up going on.
I realized like this was a thing. I never heard about it before. And I thought it was so cool. I really wanted to try it. So, I did all this research and finally I found a technique that, they said, do this and you'll have an out-of-body experience. And so I tried it. And after, less than a week, I was able to do it.
Oh, that is quick. So just for our listeners, can you explain what astral projection is?
Yeah. Well, astral projection is basically a type of out-of-body experience in which your consciousness leaves the physical body and travels into higher dimensions of reality, which are commonly called the astral dimension. Although the astral dimension actually consists of a multitude of dimensions. So basically, reality exists in a spectrum of many different dimensions. And so the physical dimension is just one. That's the one that we experience. But during astral projection, your consciousness shifts into other layers of this spectrum of reality, higher dimensions.
So are there lower dimensions as well, or is like the physical plane the lowest you can go?
It seems like the physical dimension is like our base dimension.
Okay.
So it's basically the lowest. Now, in terms of astral projection, you can experience a whole range of different dimensions, higher and lower. And really, the lower dimensions exist very close to the physical dimension. The lowest dimension that you could experience during astral projection is a dimension that's just slightly higher than the physical dimension. And, there's basically no limit as to how high you can go from there. It's just a matter of, practice and development and knowing what you're doing.
Okay. So I'd say kind of scary in a sense, like you're leaving your body in that avenue. Is there any like risk to your human body as you're like, traveling through these other dimensions?
No, that's a common misconception because your body isn't actually empty during these experiences. There are actually many dimensions or many layers of the energy body or the spirit body. You can call the astral body, call it what you want. But essentially, we have the main energy body, which is basically like the spiritual counterpart to the physical body. So that remains attached to the physical body all throughout our lives, and that never separates.
Okay.
But during astral projection, what happens is like finer layers, finer energy bodies project from this main energy body. In that sense, yeah, the body is never left empty. I've had experiences where I was aware of this main energy body inside my body and the other energy bodies which were out in higher dimensions simultaneously. So I know for a fact that there are these various aspects of the energy body that they separate temporarily during the projection, and then they integrate when you go back into the body.
Okay, so it's kind of like you're not leaving everything behind. It's just a fragment of your consciousness that moves wherever it's going.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, that's really neat. I haven't, I honestly haven't delved too deep into astral projection and the understanding of that. So that's really good. That's really good information. So what was your first experience like? So it took you a week when you were 14 years old to figure this out. So what was it like? Just kind of walk us through that.
Yeah. Well, I did the technique, and the projection triggered, and I experienced this state of, it's commonly called vibrations, and it feels like this strong buzzing energy coursing all through your body. And after that, I felt this weightless sensation, and I started to float up, and I floated up out of my body, and I was just floating in my room, and I flew out the window, and I flew into the sky, and I kind of took a little trip around my neighborhood, and that was pretty much it. It was pretty short, but it was incredible.
So it's one of those things like you can see your body there, where you left it, and you can see, everything else going on in your room. Is that kind of how that works in that avenue?
Well, that depends on what dimension you project into. So typically, the dimensions closest to the physical dimension, you will be able to see your body in bed and maybe some things happening, in the real world. I wouldn't say real world, but the physical world.
Right.
But if you project into higher dimensions, you'll be well beyond, the physical world. So you probably won't see your body, but not only that, you'll project into an environment that's completely different from the physical world.
Okay. Yeah, that is not how I thought astral projection was at all. Yeah, that's really neat. With everything, we've had good and bad experiences. So what are some of I'd say your best experiences? Like the ones that, lightened your heart and made you feel, good about what was going on.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, one of the first ones was meeting my deceased great-grandmother.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I left my body, and before having the out-of-body experience, I made the intention to do this. I decided I want to try this, see if it's possible. And so I was out of my body, and I screamed, "I want to see my great-grandmother." And I set this intention with full desire. I screamed it at the top of my lungs. I mean, metaphorically speaking, because speech doesn't really work like that in the astral. But instantly, I found myself in space, in outer space, and I was shooting through space like a bullet, like flying past stars and planets, and it was incredible. And it was like I was being pulled by this force. And shortly after that, I found myself approaching this light in the distance. And as I got closer, I realized this was my great-grandmother. It was like she was radiating with this white light. And we communicated, and it was a pretty incredible experience.
So had you ever met her while she was alive?
Oh yeah, I was pretty close with her. I mean, she had died a few years before that.
Okay. So you're aware of what she looked like and how she sounded. That's really neat. So it sounds like, because I guess we think of at least in the sense of paranormal, we sense, or we talk about meeting our dead relatives and stuff in this plane, in this physical existence. And so to see them, to visit them in something that's not even on Earth, and it's somewhere out, in the cosmos, it seems to be very different from what you kind of expect.
Yeah, well, in my experience, it's logical because when we die, we go into these non-physical dimensions that are beyond the physical dimension. So basically, during astral projection, you're going into their territory. So I think, an encounter is much more likely than in the physical world.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense. I mean, I guess we put things into the knowledge that we have, right? And so we only think about things in what we've experienced. And so, people talk about like, what would you do when you die? Because now the bounds of physics don't exist anymore. And people are like, yeah, I'd travel to all over the earth. And it's like, but you don't have to. You can travel anywhere.
Right, right. It reminds me, a lot of people ask me over the years, oh, have you ever been to like Egypt and this place on Earth? And I always say, there is so much more to experience than a few landmarks on our planet. Those don't even come close to piquing my interest anymore.
Yeah, I could see that. I guess my question would be like, did you get a chance to like, go through the rings of Saturn and experience the solar system that we know it as itself?
I can't say that I've been in our physical solar system, but I've had many experiences out in space, in certain solar systems. And these experiences are really like beyond words, because in this state, you're not only looking at the planet or the star, but you're kind of experiencing its energy almost directly. And it's so intense and it's so foreign and different from anything that I've experienced, from this world, that it's almost scary. And sometimes it gets a little too intense.
I guess I can imagine, like, if you're feeling the energy from another heavenly body, such as a planet or a star. I mean, I can imagine, like, one, it's something that you physically have never experienced before, and so like you don't know how to react to it. You don't know how it's supposed to go. Like it's a complete foreign type of experience for us.
Yeah, for sure.
So, I mean, I guess that begs the question, like if you get to, explore outer space, right, and go around the world, it's obvious that people are going to wonder, like, have you met aliens and what do they look like?
Yeah. I've had many encounters with aliens over the years. What do they look like? I've encountered several different, I don't know if you want to call them species or groups, but the ones that visited me the most were almost identical to the alien that's on the cover of Willie Strieber's Communion. Do you know that book?
I don't.
Okay. It's also a movie with Christopher Walken made in the 80s. Pretty cool movie. But basically, it looks like a typical gray alien.
Okay.
Like the triangular shaped head, the big black slanted eyes. But the skin color is like a light orange.
Oh, interesting.
And yeah. So one of my first experiences with these aliens, probably a few years after I started projecting. Now, in the beginning, I had a bunch of scary experiences with shadow people. So I would project from my body, and there would be this huge shadow being just like standing next to my bed, like almost like waiting for me to leave my body. And I encountered those guys for a while, and that was scary enough as it is. But eventually, that stopped happening, and then I started getting visited by these aliens, in the same manner. Basically, I would leave my body, and they would be there, like waiting for me, like sometimes like a whole group, like standing around my bed.
So, like, did they? I'm guessing they probably interacted with you at that point in time, like knowing that you were, going to be leaving your body in that avenue.
Yeah. Well, the thing was, I was extremely terrified. I mean, before even starting astral projection, I was always afraid of aliens. That book and the movie Communion I told you about,
Yeah.
I think I first watched that when I was maybe 8 years old, and those aliens scared the shit out of me. And I always
I can
had
believe that.
I always had this fear of aliens, and I didn't really know why. Just something about the way they looked. They made me feel so uncomfortable. And so now I'm seeing them like face to face, and it was like a nightmare like come true. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh,
So
absolutely. It's like
yeah,
facing your innermost fear, essentially.
right. Yeah. So in the beginning, um, I didn't really give it a chance to like communicate with them or anything. Like I would see them, they'd be there, and I would freak out, and I'd go back into my body. And how that works is kind of like when you have like an extreme reaction, like especially fear, while
Hmm.
you're out of body, it's almost like there's this like protection mechanism, and you automatically snap back into your body. So like you don't need to like fly back into your body. It's almost like an instantaneous thing, and you're back in your body. And so that's what would happen.
Okay, that makes sense. Like it's kind of like that um, override mechanism, something that just keeps you safe, gets you back to where you need to be.
Yeah. One of my first experiences with aliens out of body was when I was out in the astral projection, just flying around, and this house in the distance caught my attention. For some reason, I was drawn to it, so I flew over. I went inside the house. And I was just looking around, and next thing I know, there's an alien standing right next to me, and this alien, it looked more like a giant insect, like a praying mantis,
Oh wow.
and the next thing I knew, it was gone. And I had this feeling like I was missing time, like something happened, but either I couldn't remember or like the memory was blocked. But I had this feeling like I was certain something happened with this alien, but all of a sudden it was gone. And at that point, I started to feel like the reality I was in was becoming too real, and I was afraid I was like going to get stuck. Like that was going to become my permanent like uh I don't know, home dimension. And I just got freaked out. And in that case, I flew back into my body. And after that, I was basically stalked by these aliens. Even before I would actually project from my body, um, what happens usually is that right before you actually like float out of your body, your consciousness shifts into the astral dimension. So there's a moment where your consciousness is still occupying the same space as your body,
Hmm.
but you're perceiving the astral dimension. And so in these states, I would see these aliens, and sometimes they would be like bending over, like face to face, like looking into my eyes. And it was really disturbing. Like sometimes their heads would kind of twitch from side to side, like almost like they had this like mechanical quality to them. This one time, one of them reached into my mouth and reached into my throat, and I knew it wasn't reaching into my physical body. This was like in the astral dimension, but it was reaching into my astral body, and I felt it. It felt just like it was happening in my physical body, and it was
Oh,
really
that's weird.
disturbing.
That's definitely weird. So, would you say the aliens actually aren't part of the physical dimension then, that they're actually part of the astral dimensions themselves?
I'm certain that they operate in the astral dimension. I can't say what like their home base is. Like our home base is a physical dimension, and we can visit the astral. I don't know if that's the case with them, or maybe they can be in the physical and the astral simultaneously and operate in both at the same time. I don't know what the case is, but I know for sure that if you astral project, eventually you're going to run into one of these aliens.
Wow. I think that's partially fascinating and absolutely terrifying, I think, in the same stroke.
Yeah. I mean, some people say, "Oh, I want to be abducted. Like, I want to be visited by aliens." So, maybe they would like it, but for the rest of us, it's not always the most pleasant experience.
Yeah, I think that would be I mean, I guess it'd be part of terrifying in a sense, right? Because like if you're coming up out of your body and you're surrounded by these creatures that are already looking at you, waiting for you to move, there's got to be that sense of dread, like I'm already surrounded. I didn't even know it.
There would be times when they would affect me with this energy. I mentioned this vibrational state, like you feel like energy coursing through your body right before you project from the body.
Yeah.
But the energy they affect me with is different. Like it feels artificial, and it feels like I can sense that it's coming directly from them. When it hits me, like you said, it's like this feeling of dread just like washes over me, and it's paralyzing, and I can't move, I can't do anything. And not only during astral projections, but I felt the same energy in dreams. And in these dreams, uh, I have crazy dreams like UFOs are chasing me and I'm getting abducted and all this crazy stuff. And, who knows, like, even if they're dreams or if they're like some kind of experience, like in the astral, it's definitely possible. There are similarities between the dream state and lucid dreams and astral projection. It's kind of like they're all interconnected. Oh yeah, at times they would actually pull me out of my body. So I would be in bed, maybe meditating, and then I feel hands grab my ankles and they start pulling me back and forth like I feel like I'm swaying, and then they just rip me right out of my body. And it's against my will. I mean, I'm not trying to have an out of body experience, and they pull me out. And sometimes I actually feel pain um, on my ankles, like not my physical ankles, but like in my energy body, I feel pain
Hmm.
where they grab me. And sometimes I'll find myself getting pulled down this like long corridor, or they'll take me to this place or that place. But I always cut these experiences short because I'm certain they don't have good intentions.
So it's like they can take you out, but they can't keep you out. You can still pull yourself back.
Right, right.
I wonder, in a sense, if that's their actual form of alien of abduction in a sense, right? If they can actually force you out of physical plane into the astral plane, and for those who aren't knowledgeable in how to move around that plane, they obviously can't fight their way back. They don't know how. They don't know those pieces, and so I wonder if that's how they actually can essentially abduct individuals.
Yeah, it's interesting. I read about this in my book. One thing I've come to realize is that there are many aspects of alien abductions that are practically identical to astral projections. One common aspect of alien abductions is the state of paralysis that usually occurs just before like the aliens appear or the person is taken from their bed. And like I mentioned, like the same state of paralysis occurs right before astral projections because what happens is your body falls asleep. I mean, for the out of body experience to occur, your body needs to fall asleep and your mind needs to stay awake. So you experience your body falling asleep and you feel this state of paralysis set in. What happens after that is, like I said, you can kind of perceive into the astral dimension even before you leave the body. So a lot of times you'll enter that state of paralysis and you'll be able to perceive the astral dimension. And what happened to me many times, I'd be surrounded by aliens. But I had the experience to know that this was the astral dimension. To a person who doesn't have that discernment, they'll probably think it's the physical world. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
Another similar aspect is the levitating or the lifting. A lot of times people say they're lifted from their bed, through the roof, out into the sky, into a craft.
Yep.
And that's what happens during astral projections. You can fly right through anything in the astral dimension because there's no physical matter. So a lot of times you'll lift out of your body, you'll fly through the wall or through the roof, and you're free. Like what would happen to me, I was getting pulled out of my body by these entities. But it's possible that this is happening to other people, but they think they're actually like lifting or pulling their physical body and taking that.
Right. Yeah, I guess if you haven't had the experience, you can't discern the two apart, because by the sounds of it, you can still feel pain and sensations in your astral body just as you would in your physical body.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's definitely not as common to feel pain in the astral. I have on many occasions, but yeah, you definitely have sensations, and a lot of times they're actually enhanced, especially like emotions.
Oh yeah, I can imagine that. So what is like your most profound experience while moving in the astral projection?
Okay, well, I can't say there's just one, but there are a few.
Okay.
And they all involve what I call the higher self. The higher self is basically like the highest or the deepest level of who you are as a spiritual being.
Mm-hmm.
So how it works is that who we know ourselves to be in this life is just a small part of a much larger consciousness that we are a part of, but we're currently unaware of it. So the higher self experiences the physical world through many different lives and different personalities, different individuals, and not just sequentially, but also simultaneously. So this basically allows the maximization of experience and growth and learning that can be attained from, this particular level of reality. So during these experiences with my higher self, I integrate or I merge with my higher self, and I experience what it's like to exist at this higher level of consciousness. And it's such like a mind-blowing and beautiful and blissful experience. Like, it's truly beyond words. But I'd say these are my most profound experiences.
Is there one in particular like you can remember, like an event or a conversation that you had with your higher self that kind of just brings that out?
Yeah, it's not quite like meeting a person, but it's more like you enter this higher state of consciousness and you experience existence in a completely different way. There's kind of like a download of information that takes place, and you have this realization that like you're a part of this higher being and connected with all these other individuals in such like an intimate way that essentially like you're all one at this higher level, and you experience what that's like. And with these experiences comes like these incredible states of bliss. And like sometimes they're so intense, like I can't handle it, and I have to go back into my body. Like it feels like I'm going to like lose myself. Like who I am is just going to explode and like never come back.
Oh wow,
It's kind of like that.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's nothing that I can actually relate to at all. That level of bliss and experience, because like it's almost like you're experiencing everything all at once.
Yeah, experiences like that sometimes are really hard to put into words.
Yeah.
But I try. I detail a lot of these experiences in my books, and I try the best I can. It's something you really need to experience to truly understand.
So if someone's looking at getting into or starting to do astral projection, where would you point them to like start learning how to do it?
Okay. You mean aside from my book?
Yeah, aside from your book.
I think the main part is practice. What I did when I learned, I read one technique and I just gave it all I got. And in less than a week, I was able to do it. And I talk to people who try for months and they're still not able to do it. And there's basically this formula that I realized that I used to be successful. And so, you need to have the right technique. You need to have the right mindset, which is like motivation and dedication and confidence, right? So if you go into it thinking like, oh, this is so cool, but like, I don't think I'm going to be able to do it, that's no good. You got to be confident too. So yeah, I think those 4 aspects are all you need. And, techniques, you can get them from anywhere, my book, other books, the internet, YouTube. They're all over the place, but I think the most important part is like dedicated practice.
I guess that makes sense. It's kind of like if you want to be good at anything, you got to practice to make it work. And so,
yeah, exactly.
It definitely sounds like something you got to work at. And you mentioned like meditation, so it seems like meditation is part of the way to get started.
Yeah, well, you basically have an out-of-body experience from meditation. So usually you'll lie in bed and you'll enter a meditative state. And what you just want to do is deepen that state to the point where your body actually falls asleep while keeping the mind awake. And the meditation is important, especially for keeping the mind awake. So usually you want to have an active mind, focus on something, just so it doesn't fall asleep with the body. When I first started, I used the technique that you do from a fully waking state. So you can do it during the day or at night, when you go to bed. This is actually the most difficult way because your body is tired. So, okay, it can fall asleep rather easily, perhaps, especially at night.
Yep.
But, in that state, your mind is also very tired. And so the chances of your mind staying awake as your body falls asleep are much less. But if you do it in the early morning, let's say a couple hours before you usually wake up, after maybe 5 or 6 hours of sleep, that is the ideal time and the ideal state to do it because your body can usually fall asleep again pretty easily. You wake up after 5 hours of sleep and you want to get some more sleep. Usually you just fall right back to sleep. That's no problem. And, your body is also very relaxed at that time. So, doing it from a fully waking state, your body isn't really relaxed. So, it also takes longer because of that. So in the morning, not only is your body in the ideal state, but your mind is too, because it's already gotten some rest. So it's much easier to keep awake as the body falls asleep. And so, the first time I ever projected from my body was at night, and it probably took 45 minutes of the entire meditation before I was able to leave my body. Whereas in the morning, I can do it sometimes in a couple seconds of the meditation.
Wow. Yeah, that's a big difference. I kind of get it though, like, because when you wake up in the middle of the night or the morning, depending when you go to bed, yeah, like you can fall asleep pretty quick. Your mind, you're usually ready to go back to sleep. So I'm sure if you can hone that piece, it'd be a lot easier to move at that point in time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So you mentioned, we've mentioned your book. Where can people find your book?
You can find it on Amazon. You just do a search, Vincent Field, Astral Projection. It'll pop right up. The full name of the book is Astral Projection and Lucid Dreaming, Spiritual Revelations and Out-of-Body Experiences in Higher Dimensions.
That is a very long title, by the way.
That's not even all of it, actually. There's also a complete guide to exploring non-physical reality tagged on at the end. I left that out, but it's a bit wordy.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a great title in itself. I've gotten a chance to read some of it. And I got to say, some of the experiences that you've had are absolutely, I want to say crazy in its sense, because it's like you wouldn't expect that. I think the one chapter title that has been the most intriguing is The Guide to Purgatory.
Yeah, that was a really interesting experience. That title is based off of one particular experience that is in that chapter.
Your guide, how to get to purgatory or how to experience purgatory?
It's not my guide. Actually, during one experience, I think I requested to meet like a spirit guide, and I found myself in this dungeon laboratory type place, and there was this huge contraption, like this spinning circular piece of technology that seemed so futuristic, almost like some kind of like, I don't know, time machine or portal or something. There was this guy next to it, and this guy was wearing a suit, and on the suit were these like esoteric symbols that were glowing, almost like glowing with like fire or something. And
Cool.
and this guy was holding this huge book, and this book, I saw the title, and it was titled A Guide to Purgatory. And from that point, I had this really long experience, and this guy actually turned out to guide me during this experience. But yeah, that's where the title came from that book I saw.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. It kind of reminds me a little bit of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I mean, in the broadest of sense in that avenue. So,
And what else is interesting is that, who knows, maybe you could consider the astral projection, the astral dimension to be like a kind of purgatory, perhaps. Like it's not quite like heaven and it's not quite hell. It's more of a neutral zone.
yeah. Yeah, and that makes sense. Like it's the sense of wandering, right? The sense of not being in one or the other. It's the kind of the in between world in that sense.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I want to thank you for coming on and hanging out with us. Can they find you on any social media places that you interact with fans and readers?
I'm pretty quiet on those, but I will say that I'm currently writing my second book, so it should be out next year. Keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, we'll do. Definitely will do. And you guys, our listeners, you can find us on Facebook at Cold Spot Paranormal Research or Paranormal Peeps Podcast. And you can find us on Twitter at CPR Paranormal and on Instagram at coldspot_paranormal_research. And as always, stay ghosty, my peeps. Thank you for listening to the Paranormal Peeps Podcast. You can find us on social media at Twitter at CPR Paranormal, on Facebook at Paranormal Peeps Podcast and Cold Spot Paranormal Research. And you can find us on Instagram at coldspot_paranormal_research.